talk specifically about land flipping, how this can become a very simple and a very lucrative stream of income for you, whether you decide to do it full time or whether it just complements your real estate business. This is something that land is needed more than ever, and there's opportunity there. We all recognize that there is a shortage of homes. People need to be building, builders need to be building, and there's a great opportunity for you again to capitalize on this need right now. Today's episode is going to be all about that. Stay with us; it's going to be a great episode. The big question is this: how do those of us in the real estate industry with crazy amounts of ambition, how do we think bigger than the building of our own empires? How do we simultaneously seek success and significance, income and impact? My name is Justin Stoddard, and this is the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Excited to be with you today. And excited to introduce today's guest. So let me just, before I dig into to his bio, your bio, Travis, welcome to the show. Welcome to Think Bigger Real Estate.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Love the name. Is absolutely, mindset's a huge part of success. Yeah. So I love the name. So I imagine that we've got a great audience listening to this.
Yeah, we definitely attract big thinkers. And as was described in the intro, and as we talked about prior, right? It's not just about building a big empire and having an empty life behind it, but we believe in having success and significance. And I know that's something as a father of 3 boys that completely resonates with you. So in fact, I'm going to ask you a question about those 3 boys here in just a minute. Before we do that, let's give the audience some background on you. So, Travis, obviously you're a guy who not only has done land flipping in 29 states, you have hundreds of successful joint ventures, 1,000+ hours of coaching calls with one-on-one clients. But you walk the walk and you talk the talk. Talk to us a little bit about how your story got you to this point where you are now really have mastery over this topic and are teaching people at a high level about how to successfully and profitably flip land.
Well, I wish I had some extraordinarily exciting story about coming over here, as an immigrant and starting with nothing, right? But I think what people will probably relate to is that my story is very relatable, right? And then very much an ordinary guy, in the corporate world, and always been interested in real estate, like investing, but commuting to work. Going to a job, right? That I think a lot of people agree, right? Like just a job well done doesn't make it any more important or fulfilling, right? So the thing was, even though I was having some success in my professional life, there's still a big void, in the personal life and kind of that inner entrepreneur wanting to kind of satisfy or scratch that itch, being an inner entrepreneur. And real estate really felt to me like I was just attracted to real estate in general. But as we know, that's a huge umbrella, right? So we had done a lot of rentals and house investing. And I'd found it to be a really good, like long-term wealth building play. Mm-hmm. But the trouble with that was you needed the W-2 pay stubs, to get approved to buy the homes, right? And it was kind of the slow path, let's say, to wealth. Like the roadmap made sense. But it also involved 2 decades of working at a job for somebody else, right? So really, that's for me. I was seeking something that would kind of accelerate that path and allow me to kind of pursue my version of being an entrepreneur, right? Not on an Elon Musk level, but something that was more like essentially starting with becoming my own boss. That was kind of the first goal, right? Was escaping the corporate world and becoming my own boss. And while commuting to work, I had heard a podcast about, so I love big podcast listeners still today, podcasts truly changed my life. So I think a lot of people that are, seeking and looking, right, you're kind of looking for that opportunity. So for me, it all started with a podcast. That's why it's kind of serendipitous, right? Full circle to be doing podcast interviews, that's how land flipping got on my radar about 9 or 10 years ago. And so we started doing this on the side while I was working a job, and just really committed to mastering, to learning, right? Really committed to deep diving in to land as an asset class, and started flipping land, much like people would flip houses, right? only without all the sweat equity and all the work and all the drama you see on HGTV. So very simple asset class. That's kind of what attracted me, is there's really low barriers to entry with land. You could buy land at any price point. You know what I mean? There's literally $10,000 properties out there. As we know, there's $1 million properties too. But so there was lower barrier to entry. You could get started with small properties and take very small risks, small bets, and that attracted me. Whereas like houses, generally, you've got a higher price point, you've got your 20% down. It's very conventional. So that's what attracted me kind of to land. And then from there, we took it and just committed, to this asset class of land, and started with land flipping. And then it's led to all these additional opportunities and other businesses along the way.
You bring up a really interesting point for both real estate agents as well as maybe investors, and that there is this catch-22, which is the banks are going to look at your W-2. So you need to have some, what they would call safe, consistent money coming in, right? So they can bet on you. And then you also have this need where you need time available to be able to actually go build your real estate business. And those two don't always go together, right? You need the steady income from the bank standpoint, but you also need the time to be able to go do it. And what I hear you saying is that for real estate agents that are either getting started and or just want to produce another stream of income coming in, that this can be a way to do that, and that can work quite quickly, right? It's not as sophisticated nor as risky maybe as some of the other asset classes. And it's an easy way to kind of get a jump start and either boost your investor game or even your retail real estate business. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, it is. And the point is, the takeaway too, is you can start small. I mean, or you can start with much larger deals. That's what opens it up to everybody, right?
Yeah.
The beauty of this, Justin, and obviously I'm biased, right? Because that's what we're in is land. But I've seen at almost every level, it's an inefficient market. It's just an inefficient market, and that we could all agree on what the cost of a stock is and what its value is, right? The commercial real estate, single family, multifamily, right? There's a little bit of room there for arbitrage and deals, but overall, land to me is the most inefficient market I've ever found. And that sometimes it can be a little subjective in what its value is. So it's not like a house where we've got a Zillow.com, a Zestimate, we've got a Redfin, we've got a Realtor, we've got 10 or 20 different data points for what the home is worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it really presents a lot of opportunities. It's such an inefficient market because quite often the assessed value has nothing to do with the actual full market value. Okay. And that's the same for a $10,000 property. As we get higher in value, it's closer. There is more of a correlation, right? Because a county or a city isn't going to leave too much money on the table. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of opportunity at every level. That's what's important for people to understand, is that there's people doing what we do with multi-million-dollar ranches, in Texas. So I think that the thing is, people, you've got to think about, if you're in like real estate, your asset class sits on ours. Everything sits on land. You know what I mean? So it really all starts with land. So as your listeners will hear, I'm fanatical about it, but for us, it's been incredible. We were able to start very small and scale pretty big with it. So yeah, I'm kind of evangelizing land everywhere I go, Justin.
Yeah, I think for those that are in the Keller Williams world, I wasn't at the family reunion event, and I'm actually not a Keller Williams agent, but I do know that one of the big takeaways from many that attended, they said that Gary Keller had said you should wear a shirt around that says "I love land." That needs to be an emphasis and a focus point or focal point for anybody in the real estate space right now, because we are underbuilt. I mean, you see that even with rates high, there's still higher, I should say, there's still multiple offers on properties. Like the biggest challenge of our time in the housing industry is inventory, right? And I think number one, selling land is an interesting way to help solve that, because you're obviously getting closer to the point where vertical can be built on top of it. Right. But it also insulates you a little bit from that shortage of inventory. You don't need to have a structure. You're actually just selling, as you mentioned, kind of the rudimentary foundation of all properties, which is the land.
And that can be of any type, right? Based on zoning. It could be single family, it could be recreational, it could be commercial, right? There's different use cases for each parcel of land. So it gives you a lot of avenues within land that might resonate, targeting commercial land and flipping that might resonate more to you, right? Where somebody else that is very much into hiking and biking and hunting and camping, maybe recreational land investing is interesting to them. You know what I mean? So what I'm getting at is there's sub niches within the niche, and that's kind of the beauty of land. Is you could flip lakeside lots in Florida, or you could subdivide, ranches into ranchettes, right? Or you could focus on commercial land. Okay, adding value. You could rezone property. So there's so many opportunities within the asset class itself that it's kind of interesting because we've just felt like in the last couple of years, we joke, my wife and I, because we run our business together and have from the start for about a decade now, kind of joke that like we're doing land before land was cool, right? And that land in the last couple of years, as interest rates have went up and as inventories went down, right, with other asset classes, we've seen kind of a migration, right? People looking for something else, right? So we've seen a lot of people interested in land in the last couple of years, whereas we kind of felt like the redheaded stepchild over the last decade where it's just that boring, less sexy asset class. You know what I mean? It's not the turn on the TV, you're picking out new cabinets and granite countertops or quartz top. You know what I mean? It's not the excitement that you have of like a HGTV flip that house show. But it's highly profitable, right? Highly profitable and without all the drama and out all the sweat equity. So for us, we've enjoyed it for a long time, but it feels like one of those things where a lot of others are just starting to catch on, right? And move over, or at least diversify their portfolio and add some land to it, because land is so safe and tangible.
One thing that I think is interesting that you said right there, right, is that it's not sexy, and sometimes that's a deterrent, right? People have in their mind what it looks like to be successful in real estate. And but I think at the end of the day, going back to what the mantra on which the show is built, which is success and significance, it's like, what do you actually want? And do you actually want a life that creates not just income stability, but income success and things that give you the freedom to then go pursue significance? I just want to put a note in here for anybody that is interested in this topic that's here with us right now. TravisKing.com will get you all the resources. He actually has a promo code in there, which is Think Bigger, all one word. Think Bigger will give you 20% off his courses. And actually, Travis, you have a free 5-day challenge, right? Is that what it is? It's kind of a free challenge.
Yeah, and the reason for this was about, like say 9-10 years ago when we were getting started and I became interested in land, it was kind of, there was not as many courses and education out there. So it was pretty fragmented. So for me, it was kind of YouTube University, right? And Googling and duct taping together blog articles, to try to piece together this idea of land flipping and land investing. So as we're kind of like our journey progressed and I started, what happened is like you talked about purpose, right? So for me, as we got really, I'd say we not only hit our stride, like found traction and momentum, right? But we started to really build like this predictable revenue in this business. It started to feel really transactional, Justin, right? Like, I mean, it is transactional by nature. It's real estate and flips and titles and escrows and dollars, right? And wires. And so for us, it kind of felt like after we proved concept, I was able to leave my job and replace my income, become a full-time investor. And then we get a couple more years down the road, and then it kind of became wash, rinse, repeat. And it felt very transactional. So this is where we also had our systems and processes down. So I had some free time because we had, really built the business the right way. So I started getting on all these forums and communities I was in and answering questions and helping the new investors. And really with my extra time, I started to spend more time answering questions and helping people. And then people would call me to pick my brain. I started doing a lot of this. And it kind of led to a really like organic consulting and education, business. And that's where when I started doing that, what I realized was like people need somewhere where everything can be distilled and aggregated together, but it needs to be free, right? Like they need, you know what I mean? Where instead of going and doing all the YouTube videos and spending several months like I did. So we decided when we started educating, I said, well, the first thing we need to do is put something together that kind of like lets people know without them having to get out their credit card. Because this is what I experienced before when I would research something. It was like, well, hey, you got to buy the course. Right? I'd have a question. It's like, well, buy the course and your answer will be in the course. And I was like, well, I don't want to buy the course. I don't know if I'm interested in land yet. So we put together something that's kind of a long answer to we put together something, a 7-day challenge that's 100% free that really teaches people like about the land types, like rural vacant land versus residential land. You know, it kind of demystifies land and land flipping. And it's really like allows you to like introduces you and orients you to the asset class, right? And then if you're interested in moving forward and taking the next step, yeah, we have, you know, a flagship course where we teach our land flipping. And that's the one you mentioned the coupon code Think Bigger. That's 20% off on landflippingmastery.com. That's our course. But if they just go to our website, travisking.com, they'll find a 7-day free challenge. And I think that's the best spot for anybody to start, you know, because you can see if this resonates with you, if the topic, you know, makes sense over the course of 7 days, you know, you'll know without having to get your credit card out.
Let's let's go. I appreciate that. So for anybody that is catching this after the fact, and this is piquing your interest, right? Travis is the guy to go talk to. Travis, let's talk kind of quickly about, you mentioned that land flipping has, you know, there's a good profit margin there. Tell me, and I get out, it varies based on asset class and type of land, all that. What would you say would be a good benchmark if somebody were to flip land, right? Let's say they buy it for $100,000. What, in your opinion, would be considered a successful flip?
Right. Well, it kind of starts with like what I encourage people to start with is like what are your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? And then we can work backwards because that has marketing spin has a lot to do, right, with what your financial goals are. We're going to need to market a lot more, right? If you're going for much larger deals, much bigger deals, or more deals, right? So the first thing I usually start with is like, hey, kind of what are your goals? And are we going to try to accomplish that in one whack, one deal? Or are we going to break that up? You know, you can make $100,000 in one deal, or you could do $10,000 deals or two $50,000 deals, right? So that's usually what I start with, Justin, is kind of like, what's the financial goal? And then work backwards of how we accomplish that. Because we can flip cheap rural vacant land and make that 100,000 over 5 deals, right? Or we could do one big flip and make that, right? So that's usually where I start, is like, what are you trying to accomplish? But what you'll find is it's like I said, it's an inefficient market at all levels. So what people need to understand, and this is where a lot of people are skeptical, because I haven't found this in any other asset class. It's really common, Justin, for us to not pay more than 50% of full market value. Okay. You know, to pay, let's say pay 150,000 for a lot that's worth 300, right? And then turn around and list it for 300, maybe, maybe accept an offer at 275 or something. That would be realistic.
Wow.
So for a lot of people that's hard for them to understand. Now, like, to unpack that, it's there's marketing right behind that. You might have to send out 6,000 postcards, you know what I mean? Or you might have to have several thousand cold calls to get that deal. Do you know what I'm saying? So there's obviously a marketing cost, but kind of our secret sauce to all of this, Justin, is like the targeted list. So what we do, we go direct to seller for off-market land. And this is key because it's not on Zillow. There's not an agent involved. Nobody's raising their hand that they want to sell it. So we go direct to seller, and we identify off-market landowners who we find the pattern is that most of the people that sell to us have owned for a long time. That's kind of a pattern. And then there's another subset there's an event that occurred, right? Somebody passed away and they inherited the land. They live in Boston it's in the desert in Arizona and they have no interest in dad or grandpa's land, right? So there's some of these life events of how they got the land, but it all starts for us with pulling, it's essentially the assessor tax roll, and then targeting all these off-market landowners who don't have it listed. And then we're offering approximately 50% of market value. So that's for us, that is the secret sauce, is that our money's made on the buy side. So we capture equity, right? We capture such a significant amount of equity that it's not like that house flip on TV where they pay 70, 80%. The remodel costs more than they thought, and then they find mold in the walls, and then they got to do price cuts, and the agent listed it too optimistically, right? And then they end up not making any money.
And we've all seen those episodes, right? We've all
yeah, I mean, for us, it's we capture so much equity on the buy side, on the acquisition. That's truly where the money's made, and then we're just realizing that gain upon the resale. So that's essentially what we do, but it works at every level. So it's just your goal. So if you tell me how much you want to make, where sometimes there's a disconnect is, somebody will come into our community, our education program, and they'll say, how much do you want to make a year? And they go, $1 million. And then I say, okay, well, how much do you have for marketing? I go, well, I could put $1,500 towards this, and you go, well, there's a disconnect there, right? You only want to spend $1,000 in marketing and you're trying to make $1 million, so there's a correlation to, it's a numbers game. So there's a correlation to how much you're willing to spend on marketing. Like direct mail is one of our main methods for outbound marketing. But there's a correlation to how much you'll spend on marketing, versus how much equity you can capture, or how many deals you'll get, right? So it's really backwards math, honestly, and then depending on how much your means are, some guys would buy with their self-directed IRA, right? Borrow against a 401k, or completely self-fund it because they're liquid, or 1031, right? So it's really based on your means and how high of value properties you're targeting. It's really common for us, kind of let's say our sell box, though, in our business model is 30,000 to 300,000. That's kind of our sweet spot. Like, if that helps kind of give, a little bit of an answer to the question, that's kind of the price point that we resell properties at.
Fascinating, really, that the profit is in the finding, right? Have you found, again, one thing that I write about in my book, The Upstream Model, is that there's no doubt that prospecting and marketing works. I think we'd all would argue that we would love to get a warm referral over a cold lead. And obviously, the only reason why people wouldn't just focus on warm referrals is because they aren't getting enough of them, right? And in my book, I teach that there are other professionals in the marketplace who come to find out that their current customers or relationships are your future customers, right? So rather than just relying upon your sphere, which can be very limiting, it's good, but you just run out of warm referrals. That when you tap into the other professionals who have large databases of warm clients as well, you can get somewhere. Have you found specific strategic referral partners who can lead you to these opportunities through a warm market approach as opposed to cold?
Well, so with the cold, the beauty of the cold part is that we control our lead generation, right? It's only limited by our willingness on marketing spend, like meaning we can pull the assessor tax rolls ourselves. We can run direct mail campaigns or cold calling or texting campaign. So we can always generate our own leads. But there's a couple ways this works though. So actually, like if you have integrity, you treat people right, you're not pressuring anybody to sell their property. If you say what you do, then do what you say, right? And you close the transaction and you buy the property, what we'll find is goodwill compounds, right? So we'll have individuals that sold to us 6 months or a year later, they'll send their aunt, they'll send their parents, they'll send a friend and say, hey, they're looking to unload their property. And they don't want to deal with an agent and showing the property all the time. And they don't want to list it and have it take 6 months or a year to sell. Right. So it's interesting, right? We get a lot of referrals from people that have been through that. We kind of paint the process for them, but then when we actually do what we said we would, and everything closes smoothly, we get them, they go, well, actually, I own a couple more properties that we hadn't talked about yet.
Right.
Or actually I have a relative. So we get a lot of referrals that way. But also as we list with agents, so 100% of our properties we resell through agents. Okay. So we do build up a great relationship with a lot of agents and brokers. And there's situations, where those agents or brokers will call us and say, hey, this person is thinking about listing, but they don't want to deal with all the nonsense. They're happy to just wait. You know what I mean? Wait. So there's a lot of opportunity, like for pocket listings or things like that, things that never make it or get listed. Or you would call agents and brokers and say, hey, we're kind of looking in this area. If you've got anybody that, like, people know we're investors, we're not paying anywhere near full market value, but we say, if you've got somebody that owns one or several properties, we'll buy them all at once, right? Without even, so to answer your question, through like agents and brokers is one method. And then through, since we're actually buying property and acquiring it, it's not sales, but it's kind of like a repeat customer. Your best customers being the ones you already have, right? Like if we treat these people right, not only will they provide great testimonials that give social proof to future land sellers and property owners, but quite often they might even own properties in other states that you didn't know about, or they have friends or relatives that do. So to answer your question, yes and yes, right? So, and that's kind of like just the cherry on top. That's a bonus. You know what I mean? That didn't cost us. There was no marketing spend to get that. But yeah, absolutely.
I love it. That really aligns with what we teach, right? Is that oftentimes you can get, especially when you consider the profitability of that model, right? When you don't have the market expense, by pouring into certain relationships like you identified, right? Some of which are obviously past clients is an obvious one, but in the professional space, you get other real estate agents and all of a sudden you just increase the number of finders that are out helping you find those deals. And I think about, with real estate agents, they bring it to you, then they get to sell it, when you go back to resell. And
here's the other thing we do is there's quite often, because obviously, like I said, it's a numbers game. Not everybody's lining up to sell their property for 25 or 50 cents on the dollar, right? So we get a lot more no's than we do yeses. Yeah. So we get a lot of people that they're interested in selling, but they wanted full market value, right? Or we're expecting that. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to take that lead and say, hey, you know what? We're investors. It just doesn't make sense for us to buy at that price, but we know a really good agent in this market. Would you like us to pair you up? And then we'll refer them to the agent and not ask for a referral fee, because we're investors, not agents, right? Not ask for a referral fee. And how much goodwill are we building as we refer a free lead to a real estate agent? And we do that over and over again. And then they're very willing when we're trying to value a property. They're very willing to provide opinions of value, because, you know what I mean? Because there's been so many situations we've sent them free leads. So it's truly like a bi-directional relationship, a win-win for us. So that's kind of how we approach that part of like nurturing the network, not always just asking for opinions of value, right? And listings, but actually giving them the leads that we would just consider dead leads in our business.
Right. Well, that's the essence of the upstream model, is that once you identify who the right partners are, it's how do I add significant value to them, right? How do I bring such value to them that they want to integrate me into their business? So I love it. You'll be having a copy. If it's not already at your doorstep, it'll be there any day now.
Awesome. Love it. Huge book nerd and audio book nerd too. So yeah, books have played a massive role in my, kind of lifelong learning.
I love it. Good stuff. And I appreciate all the insight. I promised we'd talk about those 3 boys of yours, because again, the show is not just about success, it's about significance. Talk to us about how land flipping has given you the freedom to be the dad that you want to be.
Oh, it was the catalyst, right? It was like initially, like that's why I started. Is I was traveling for work. I had to go to town a lot. And at the time, Justin, we had 2 kids and we wanted to grow the family. We wanted to have a third. But I felt like every time I went out of town, I was kind of leaving my wife to do the heavy lifting, right? And one, I missed the kids and missed her when I was gone. But 2, I felt like it's a tough decision, to kind of a selfish decision, to grow the family and then be gone traveling and working. Right. So for me, it was really, as I was searching for something, that was the why. Was like, hey, I want to be a participant in my marriage and raising my kids, not a spectator. I don't want to be that. You hear all these older guys I'd work with talk about the years they missed, their regrets. And rather than being that guy, I wanted to recognize that while I was in it, So for me, that's why it all started, was like, one, I didn't want to have to like try to sneak out of work early and then race to my kid's ball game. And then I was kind of agitated and stressed because all the work I had to leave and everything. But by the time I got there, I wasn't really present anyway, right? I was kind of in an agitated state because I had to leave early. And then when I was able to go full time investing, that's where for me it really changed, because I felt like the ball game wasn't stressful. It was leaving work that was stressful, right? To go to it. So kind of instead of like building your life around a job or around a profession, I always felt like that was upside down, but it's just really like contrary to the norm, right? It's really contrarian to how society is. Everybody, that's what you do. It's just normal. And I didn't like that, right? So for me, it was like, how do we build income, right, around the family and around our life and living, right, and doing those things? And it doesn't just happen, right? You got to seek it out, and then you've got to have a clear vision of it. So for us, it was a very like methodical process. Like, how do we build this? How do we get from here to there? And that's the toughest spot, is when you're in that, and there's that overlap of you're doing something outside of work, right, that you want to make your main thing, and getting from where you are to that is tough. But for me, that why of the family and the kids, that was enough, right? Like that was strong enough. My why was strong enough that I would follow through on the how, part of it. So yeah, it's a blast, because now we're in a situation where we got 3 boys. They're all in 2 sports each. We travel. We can take the vacations when we want, for as long as we want, without worrying about like, how many days off, how many weeks of vacation time do I have built up, or when we get there, having such a limited budget, right? So it's completely been life-changing. That's why I am kind of such a land evangelist, is it's totally transformed our life, like our immediate life, and then probably our generations, like of our kids. We were able to move all our boys from public school to a private Christian school, which was really important to us. And it was something that financially we couldn't have done prior, right? So it's land has just had so much impact on our family, that, yeah, it's just life looks a world different. The main thing is, I think though, like for me, is that autonomy, that person, like the selfish piece of it for me privately and personally, is just that autonomy of like knowing that kind of I'm in charge of my schedule, my life, my day. My wife and I work together, so I get to work with her every day. If we want to get up and go take a walk, right? We want to go have lunch together, we can. These are things when I was trapped in the corporate world, I would daydream about, So for me, yeah, it all started like family was the why. It wasn't how do I build a business? It was like, here's why I want to build a business. And then as we kind of went down that path, we just found along the way, as I started coaching and helping other people for free. I mean, I was doing all this training and helping people for free. What I realized is then people would come to me and say, hey, do you want to partner on a deal? Right? Like, hey, you taught me how to find a deal. I found this deal, but it's more than I can take down, like financially. Would you joint venture with me on it? So very organically, like our education company, which we weren't at the time, like I say, charging for, turned into like a funding and joint venturing company. And that's allowed us, as we've scaled that's allowed us to now have like a full-blown like education company. And we co-own a capital company, freedomlandcapital.com, where that's what we do, is like we provide the capital for the people that aspire to do this, but maybe don't have the resources. We joint venture with them. So it's really cool, because all the problems we solved along the journey of achieving like freedom, right? Not just financial freedom, but like our freedom, right?
Yeah.
All those problems we solved for ourselves. We're just doing that for others now, but it's those that are on the same journey I was on, just kind of at an earlier chapter, but that's the part that's fulfilling. Like I said, it kind of becomes transactional. When you're doing a lot of deals, it really becomes transactional. So when you start coaching and helping other people, seeing people get their first deal, that's pretty exciting, right? That's more exciting than your 500th deal. Each person's first deal is a very big milestone for them. So when you get to share in that, it kind of brings fulfillment and purpose into the business, into a business that's very transactional. So for me, it checks a lot of boxes. It allows us to kind of live the life we want with my family, have the financial freedom, the time freedom, but then also there's some purpose and fulfillment there where I'm coaching others, I'm helping others, and I'm helping a lot of people like escape their jobs, right, as well. So land has been good to us. So that's kind of my calling, is to go around and evangelize it and try to free people of their jobs so they can hang out with their family more, right?
I love it. I think I just want to put in a word here for any real estate agents that are listening to this, wondering how this applies, right? I think you could quite easily enlist an army of land finders, right? I mean, think about directing people to Travis, having him teach them how to go be land flippers. And essentially they're going to be bringing those land deals for you to resell. So if you're wondering kind of how this applies to you, if you're already licensed, which again is our primary audience here, you could easily take a look and say, you know what, I've got a number of people in my database who, if they could be on the lookout for land and learn how to do this, and they bring all those deals to me, you just added to your team without adding to your payroll, which is
that's just it. They'll bring you those deals where even the deals they can't do, or the seller won't take their offer, but just wants full market value, right?
Yeah,
so that's the beauty. If you're willing to provide some opinions of value along the way, right there, we have that's the main thing, is we run an actual community instead of just like selling education products. The byproduct of training people is we've built this community, right? And we have this community of people where that's just it. There's so much opportunity, and it's kind of like you said, Justin, there's not a cost. It's kind of found money, right? Like as an agent, that's kind of found money there. If you've got somebody who, if you're willing to provide some opinions of value along the way, they'll throw you all the deals. They're going to let you list the properties they do get anyway, but they're also going to give you all the leads that they couldn't convert. Yeah. It's a win-win. So yeah, we've in the last couple of years, we've attracted a lot of, we've seen a lot of agents that either want to be an investor agent, or at the same time, yeah, they're like, heck yeah, I'll provide an opinion of value here and there if you'll throw me some listings without me having to spend, right, for leads.
Yeah, I mean, I think an agent can literally go through your database and curate a list of the people who you feel like would be a good candidate for this, or even just send an email to all of them. Say, if you've ever been interested in investing in real estate, I know a very simple way for you to get started that does not require you to leave your job, does not require a lot of capital, it does not require you to get your license. We'll partner up together on flipping land. And
there's a lot of agents that kind of turn their nose up at land, but what they don't realize is quite often land even pays a higher commission, So the reality is there's a lot of time you might be able to charge 8%. You might be able to charge 10% with land, right? Some of the agents people don't realize this, they're completely unaware of it, but some of the most profitable agents are these guys selling large ranches, right? Like, you know what I mean? So it's very interesting, right? These guys selling land ranches are doing more than the Beverly Hills house agent, right? So people, it's just an asset class that people are unaware of or a little bit ignorant to, and it just takes some orienting and educating, and then people generally quickly realize the overlooked opportunity.
Yeah. I love it, Travis. You've taught us not only how to think bigger about building a great business, having a successful business, but also having a significant life. So I want to thank you for that, for those tips and guidance. And for anybody listening out there today that has been inspired by this, I encourage you to do a couple of things. Number one, take a screenshot of this podcast and share your stories on Instagram. Yeah. And then at that point, just tag me. As Travis described, one of the big reasons why I do this is for the thrill of helping other people to think bigger. That's a mantra and a mission that I hold, helping expand people's possibilities, help them to recognize the potential inside of them, and then to inspire them, to help them to live that. So if this has been beneficial in any way, I'd love to hear your feedback. Again, please just take a screenshot of the podcast, however you're listening to it, share it on Instagram, tag me in it, and we'd love to see that. And Travis, we appreciate everything you've shared with us today. I'm grateful for what you've shared and all the resources that you have to help people to get started, help either individual investors get started and/or real estate agents to literally build an army of land finders that are referring them business all the time. Pretty interesting concept. So appreciate it very much, my friend.
Absolutely. Hey, happy to connect with another guy doing this with a purpose, right? For a reason. Like I say, there's a lot of successful people out there, but not everybody's. Whenever there's alignment, with things like with family and with purpose, I kind of it's a lot more fun, right? And that's kind of what we've done as we've built our community. Is we you build a whole community of like-minded individuals around you, and it's fun. It's fun to do this. So I enjoy this. Appreciate you having me.
I love it. And my final request of everybody listening here today are these 3 simple words, and they are go think bigger. Travis, thanks for helping us do that, my friend.
All right. Thanks, Justin. Thanks.
Be honest, hearing good ideas is not enough. You have to apply them in order to get the results desired. If you found value in today's episode, then you're really going to love the community of big thinkers and high achievers that we are building in order to help you to apply the principles taught today. If you're not yet a member of Think Bigger Real Estate on Facebook, go sign up now.